Happy New Year's, guys! We got a lot of ground to cover today, most of it in ruins, as we go from the wrecked Sector 7 up the tower into our first moments within Shinra Tower proper, and the meeting with Mayor Domino, no less. And then, we have some chapters from the Nibelheim Incident, so let's get a move on. Starting with Gallagher's work, as usual, and true to form, we begin with Gallagher's description. He has a tendency to lay it on real thick in the opening of each scene as we know it. In this case, he's showing us the refugee situation after the disaster. This is from page 145 and 146. The smog of dust and grime had all but dissipated as the trio passed beneath the glowing neon sign at the entrance to Wall Market, the hazy green light illuminating what remained of the misty particles. A hubbub of bodies inhabited the long streets of the town, the survivors of Sector 7 seeking refuge around the many fires that had been lit for warmth outside the stores and eateries. It seemed that most had made the short journey from Sector 6's Green Park, their sad eyes trailing the three as they ventured through the crowds. Although populated with those who had suffered great and terrible loss in the last few hours, Wall Market's restlessness had not in any way ceased. Its bars were crawling with drunks, and its nightclubs reverberated with music. The night air was consumed by the scents of fried foods and alcohol, the litter of the main road a feast for scavenging rodents and birds. Around them, the lamps lining the path began to flicker at set intervals, the electrical circuits of the district clearly affected by the collapse of the Sector 7 pillar. Now, as great as that is, okay, Gallagher, we gotta talk. You do a great job explaining the abandoned tunnel that you end up using. You give us a solid lore reason for it. This is great. And you pay homage to the original scene in a really cute way. But you cut out the golden shiny wire of hope, man! That's like a classic scene. Now, I'll grant your version does make a lot more sense. And, you know, you use the line golden shiny staircase of hope, which, okay, is a nice touch. But there is a wreckage ladder-shaped hole in my heart. So yeah, as I mentioned, they don't climb up the ruined and wrecked highway, but instead use an abandoned route up the central tower. Now again, I see why he did it. This does make a lot more sense. And he still manages to pack in the powerful imagery of the ruined Sector 7 as they ascend, commenting darkly that the only thing to survive was a portion of the train graveyard. Now you see, that's a good call-out right there, because that little touch sets the mood. Both of these writers have a talent for packing a lot of punch into a single sentence. Okay, I know we just had one, but it's quote time again, because the description of the Shinra Tower is absolutely phenomenal. This is from page 148. Before them, the foundations of Shinra Inc.'s headquarters loomed over the cobbled plaza like the monstrous underbelly of a mythical creature, spreading itself across 16 square city blocks. Unending rows of windows lined the arcing face of the main building, and smaller adjacent towers on either side, the golden glow radiating from each intensifying its overly synthetic appearance. Beyond the first 30 floors, the central body of the skyscraper slimmed in breadth, forming what seemed like a second structure, individual from its support. Masses of waste building belching Mako fumes into the already overcast sky, everyone marked by the Shinra diamond. At the pinnacle of the headquarters, the final 10 levels narrowed further to become an even more secluded part of the construct, culminating in the presidential office 70 stories above them. I like it. That's just... Man, the imagery hits you really hard there. The comment on mythical creature, in particular, I liked. So, in the category of little touches that make a scene, Gallagher comments that they have to initially shield their eyes at first, because they've been down in the slum tunnel for so long they aren't accustomed to the light yet. Now, I don't know if this was intentionally designed to mirror the plight of the slumlings in general, but I thought it was poetic. When scoping the place out, Cloud mentions the barracks not being in Shinra Tower, and also how he would get briefings on the 49th floor, a nice compilation tie-in as we've come to expect. But what I liked more was Barrett, mentioning the building of the Corel reactor. He had to visit Shinra to get it done, according to this book. It's a nice and well-timed, purposeful bit of backstory, which explains Barrett's inside knowledge. And it also really nicely foreshadows the later events in Corel. Now, I know what you're all thinking. How did Gallagher have them enter the building? Well, true to his adherence to realism, he had them take the sneaky route, of course. This opens up an opportunity for Cloud to get a little pissy with Barrett, about Barrett and Tifa not coming to look for him. I'm going to be honest, kind of a weird time to bring this up, but then again, he had an opportunity because Barrett did goad him by commenting, as he does in the game, how he didn't think Cloud would fight for anybody else. And this comment on his selflessness being unexpected actually does play out in both books, so... the stairs scene does keep a lot of the commentary in from the original scene in the game. It's told entirely with dialogue, very little description. I like it. It's different for Gallagher, because it creates a sort of weird vacuum scene, where we're wondering how long it's going to go because we don't have the context clues of his description. It's a really effective way to give the scene an engaging sense of disorientation. He even kept in the endless staircase line. So they finally get up to the 60th floor, and Cloud bumps into an employee who mistakes him for security because, you know, soldier uniform. Really, he mistakes him for a member of the repair team, I should say. Also, Gallagher named this guy Arkham. Hang on a second. I had to look this up. Okay, Arkham is actually a character from Case of Denzel, from On the Way to a Smile. Again, the man does his homework. Alrighty, let's have our third quote. And this time, oh man, it is of the library. I'm telling you, this is a good chapter. Okay, from pages 157 and 158. I don't actually have to clear my throat every time I do that. I just realized I'm doing that out of habit. I'm sorry. Okay, here we go. The trio found themselves immediately inhaling the stale air of dusty books as they ventured into the library. About them, all was still, the gas lamps hanging from the ceilings evidently dimmed to create a peaceful mood. The layout of the library was such that the exterior of the stairway was an isolated shell at the heart of the level, with a soft red carpet spreading from it in every direction. Throughout the expanse, its walkways were lined by row upon row of steel brackets adorned by countless books and manuscripts. The shelves had been arranged by department, each represented by an individual color and coordinated by importance. Cloud began along the aisle before him, his fingers trailing the labels of the yellow bookcase. A bronze plaque above his head identified the section as Shinra's Urban Development and City Planning Research, the spines of the file reports numbered in perfect order, most of which were authorized by Director R. Tuesti. He mentally read the titles on some of the folders: Architectural Constraints of Midgar, Problems with Plate Construction in Midgar, An Illustrated Guide to City Planning, Midgar City Maps, Sector 0 to 4, Midgar Highway Project, among several others. Turning right, he came to a block of red columns under the title of Weapons Development Research. This section of the library was significantly larger than the previous, spanning the length of the floor to a blackened window of the tower's south face. Documents and reports as wide as any Cloud had seen before sat unmoving on the broad steel plates. Tilting his head as he walked, he continued to read. Special regulations of long-term Mako weapons, materia production and its military uses, plans for new land weapons, economic report, budget committed to anti-Shinra activities. I'll cut it off there. I could go on for a while. You better believe there are tons of tidbits here besides those, my friend. Along with including most of the book names, as you saw earlier, there are nods to the other Jenova documents from Dirge of Cerberus, the one about Genesis and Angeal. It really is a goldmine, as Barrett comments in the chapter, and as always, Gallagher packed it with references. This is actually a good time to point out how important this is. This isn't just, oh cool, he's world building. This is actually really crucial to the way he's writing his multi-novel story. You see, the first book is beginning to ramp up to its climax, but it is only the first book. This is the time to stop hinting at and start flat out telling us that there is more to the story than we've seen so far. And Gallagher is doing just that with this library. Jenova, Professor Gast, GNA, there is so much more going on, and Gallagher is making that clear. He is using his time in the Shinra Tower very well so far. And the fun doesn't stop there. When they meet Mayor Domino, he's reading a biography about Mission YA-79, the launch of the Shinra 26, with biographical information on the pilot, Sid Highwind. Man. The conversation with Domino is nice and fairly by the book, so to speak. It covers the key elements. Domino knows Cloud ain't no repairman, and soundly shows off his knowledge, while also basically saying, fuck Shinra. There is an interesting moment here when they run into Hojo, though, right before the chapter ends, where we get a mini flashback, a classic of Cloud's here, and it's flashing back to a scene, presumably from Crisis Core. Not much else to say here, but it's a nice touch. This is how, basically, Gallagher reveals his identity. Oh, Cloud, yeah, I know this guy. It's Professor Hojo. And that leads us into Chapter 10. So, yeah, great chapter. Not just on a world building and lore standpoint, but as I said, really used the time well. Really well paced chapter. So now we're over to The Mercenary, Williams' book. And this is weird. We're starting in the middle of a chapter, and we will be ending in the middle of a chapter to keep the segments even. So, here we go. We're picking up on page 197, a couple of pages into chapter 24, and heading all the way to page 223, about halfway into chapter 26. So, starting off, we get a scene from Tifa's point of view where she deals with homesickness. She wakes up and begins recounting in her mind all the things she's missing, her punching bag, her clothes, stuff like that. There's a brief bit of dialogue here as Cloud explains his plan to go after Eris, which ends with Tifa looking at a sunflower and commenting that the flowers look like the sun. This is a beautiful moment because it highlights exactly what Tifa has given up. Think about the desire in the heart of all the slumlings, just to see the sun. Well, now Tifa can see the sun, because Sector 7's plate no longer blocks the view. I may be reading way too much into this, but for me, this exchange is where Tifa truly lets go of Sector 7 in her heart. It's been taken away, her path ahead is clear now. But there is some ass-kicking to take care of first. Tifa insists on going to deal with the traitorous clothes shop owner first, and Cloud wants a piece of the Don. There's a funny moment where Cloud asks if Barrett wants to join him, and Barrett shoots back, "You thought I'd choose you?" Savage burn, Barrett. So Tifa arrives at the clothes shop and uses it to get dressed for battle. Mind you, she's still in a dress. The description of the clothing provided some interesting character insight into how Tifa views herself. A great bit of writing here from Williams. Let's take a look. This is from page 200 and 201. She found appropriate garments of leather and cloth, a pair of fine black suspenders, traveling boots, and a red band with which to tie back her hair, an unruly waterfall of obsidian. She stepped into the changing booth and closed the curtain, leaving Barrett in the main room with the trembling shopgirl. She peeled off the dress slowly. Her wounds had healed from the restore, but some of the new skin was grafted to the blue fabric. She peeled it off herself, but kept any moans of pain caged in her throat. The white shirt fit snugly around her chest, and she had to adjust the straps of the suspenders to their full length. She hated her breasts for as long as she had them. It seemed they only ever got in her way. She looked at herself in the mirror, briefly lamenting her long legs and her pursuit of pugilism. She re-emerged from behind the curtain. The girl was still quivering behind the counter. Tifa said nothing, too exhausted, anxious, and sad to indulge in her powerful anger, the force that gave her true form. You see, right there, it's just those little moments. You see, Tifa here decides, yeah, you're right. The store owners couldn't have known how it was going to go down. And so just using that scene of having her change outfits and, in a sense, change mindsets, while still giving us a bit of character growth. It's you packed a lot into that little scene. So they call off their revenge and go off to join Cloud at the Dons. But unfortunately, Shinra are kill-stealing fucktards, who it is revealed has brought down the mighty Gatling gun of Damocles upon them. By interrogating a few near misses, Cloud finds out that Corneo knew that the Shinra were coming for him and told his cronies to defend the mansion while he fled. Basically, he used them as a distraction to get the hell out of Dodge. It's slimy and despicable and cowardly, and let me tell you, when you can somehow make a rapist underworld crime boss sound even worse, you're doing your job right. So Williams does keep in the golden shiny wire of hope, but he does something interesting with it. Rather than, as the game depicts, they just, climb up a massive wall of wreckage, he doesn't do that. They just use the wire to get onto the other side of the wall, into the Sector 7 ruins, and then begin a much longer, slower trek up towards the central pillar. It's actually kind of a cool blend of both the original game and doing what Gallagher did, fulfilling the realism without dropping a classic scene. Top of chapter 25 now. Let's take a look at the description for this part of the journey. This is from page 206. The hike took hours, and ash snowed upon them the whole time. Cloud tested every chunk of asphalt before climbing over. Barrett had to retest it, accounting for the extra weight. The hike became steeper the closer they came to the center of Midgar. Tifa was the strongest leaper of the three, and she kept pace with Cloud when running, short distances at least. When it came to mounting large obstacles, however, her joints juddered and her arm muscles ached. At one point, while lifting herself over an S-25 sedan, one of her arms gave way to keep from falling. She grasped the hand of a corpse that stuck out from between the two concrete boulders. It was swollen. The fingers warped in her grip like bags full of water. The main support pillar was ahead. A train had been ripped off the tracks and hung heavily from a hole in the tunnel, its back car dangling a meter or so off the ground. Cloud looked on either side of the train. The concrete slabs were too steep to climb, and deadly live wires waited for them at the top. "We can climb through the train," Barrett suggested. "Are you nuts?" Cloud knocked on the side of the train, and it shook from the impact. "We'd pull this thing right out of the tunnel." Tifa wiped the soot out of her eyes. "It's risky, but it's less risky than trying to scale the wall." Oof. You see, that's what we're in for this chapter. That adventure continues the entire chapter, and there is a lot going on. I really, really like that Williams took this chapter to describe the journey. There's a reference to the Hole Eater monster, a very tense moment of a bloodied body falling through some of the wreckage and nearly dislodging our heroes while scaring the hell out of them, and then the two combine to turn this book into the movie Tremors for a second. Anybody? Kevin Bacon? No? Okay. Anyway, that basically sucks up chapter 25. And while it's a great scene, here's the old standby, read the whole chapter for more details. We do, besides, get a little more traveling in chapter 26. There's a theme going on here in how both Williams and Gallagher handle their time travel. Williams, in particular, handles his, I should say, travel time. Time travel's my book. Anyways, he hadn't been shy about addressing the need for additional content in his segments. He adds stuff where it's needed. What would be a quiet, introspective time has just a few moments of that before turning into a completely original action scene. It's a nice way of writing, and it's a nice point of comparison between these two authors. Okay, skipping ahead a bit, because I have to get to one of my favorite interactions in the book. It's a scene that has pathos and mirth in equal measure, and most importantly gives us a return to a beloved joke from earlier. Take it away, me. This is from page 215 and 216. Employees trudge sleepily up and down the stairs, as well as some tourists. The day after a tragedy like Sector 7, the lobby seemed empty as a tomb, and death was in the eyes of everyone Cloud could see. To Cloud's immediate right was a reception desk, with a girl about his age behind a computer screen. "Sir?" she asked. He stopped, glancing at a nameplate on the desk that read, "Rhonda, reception." "Yes, Rhonda?" The girl's eyes grew sad. "My name's not Rhonda, it's Anna. Rhonda lived in Sector... well, she didn't come in." "Oh," Cloud nodded. "Do you people have an appointment?" She eyed Barrett up and down. Cloud held his ID card out for her. "I'm Dr. Feichschlager, 19th floor. These are some forestry specialists from the Nibel area. My appointment is with them. She looked at it, but only briefly, before looking back at Barrett's gun arm. Yes, sir, Anna agreed distantly. Cloud leaned in. Don't stare, he's sensitive. She stammered. Oh, I'm sorry. Don't be, Cloud said. I'd stare too, if he wasn't the top mind in his field. Barrett grunted, but kept his mouth shut. Miles Feichschläger. I still love that damn joke. So yeah, they just waltz right in the front door using his fake ID, which is a nice option C choice from Williams. Again, he never seems quite content with doing what the game presents if its only purpose is game mechanics, and I think this works out well. Now, the pace is decidedly quicker once they get into Shinra Tower. Nothing like the meeting with Arkham occurs, but rather they move pretty quickly up the tower. Although it's interesting that he works in some of the stairwell dialogue into this by having Barrett comment about Cloud's selflessness during the elevator ride. I mentioned that earlier with Gallagher's version. And speaking of the elevator, they run into Mayor Domino in the elevator. There's a hilarious moment where Barrett just suggests killing the dude, and he's like, wait, you don't know who I am? Well, fuck, just go ahead and kill me. And then Cloud finds out he's the mayor. It's such an off-the-wall scene. The comedy chops are really coming out again in this late phase of the game. So, we've got an interesting dynamic now, where they basically march Domino back to his office as a hostage, but Domino seems alarmingly okay with dying. I mean, he was ready to die in the elevator, so I guess at this point he has brass balls. Or maybe they're bombs or orbs. When they do arrive in his office, Domino refuses to speak to anybody but Cloud, basically asking him, well, how's life on the outside? What's more interesting is the reaction from Domino when Cloud reveals their mission. You see, Domino's under the impression that they're terrorists, and I mean, he's not wrong, and that they were going to ask for, like, sensitive information, or where to plant bombs and some such. But when Tifa says they're there as liberators, he just comments, no, you're troublemakers. He then proceeds to tell them that all the details of the security around the head honchos of the place, where they're gonna be, and what to do. And he says that while Domino can't get them to where Eris is being kept, they should go ahead and, as he puts it, make trouble. The segment ends with Cloud asking him why he's doing this. The mayor says that 2 million people died yesterday, and what better reason could there be? Barrett, looking at a globe, says he can think of one. A nice touch. Oh lordy, conclusion time. Wow. So, the big difference here. Pacing, pacing, pacing. Gallagher spends a little time in transit, but it's a slow, quiet, contemplative journey. When he arrives at the Shinra Tower, he spreads his leg out, and takes time to soak in the scenery and play around a bit. At this phase, Williams takes a long time on a journey, fleshing it out with action, but offering little quiet time. And when he's at the Shinra Tower, he progresses almost at breakneck pace, already shooting up to just before the big meeting. Now, to be fair, I think this is going to balance out some in the later game. As a point of comparison here, Gallagher has 3 chapters left and 56 pages, at least before his Nibelheim Incident chapters, whereas Williams' version has 6 chapters and 66 pages left. That's a little creepy. Anyways, as always, both do a great job, and we are just at the cusp of this book's climax, and I promised myself I wouldn't make an edging joke, so let's just go ahead and move on to the Nibelheim Incident. So, I'm going to be writing a full-on review of this book, along with both of the other 2. I will try to express myself a bit more professionally in that. But we have 5 chapters to get through to keep us on pace, so these comments are going to be pretty condensed. Chapter 6. Taking the point of Heidi's perspective here, there is a great character moment where Heidi doesn't have the heart to tell Tifa that her hometown hunk ain't a soldier, he's just a lowly military grunt, but she thinks internally, well, that doesn't mean he's not a hero, which is a very humanizing and sweet thought, considering in the original game we see these cannon fodder guys being treated like shit, such that one can be bribed with a measly 10 gil. This is a rare mindset. The conveyance they are trapped in soon becomes a gondola-sized coffin as they are attacked by a freaking dragon. This is excellent because I'm gonna guess this is the same dragon that Sephiroth is later going to turn into Spyro Sliders with the Masamune. And this action sequence is just amazing. The dragon knocks out the tower holding the line, causing it to go slack. So they have to bail. Heidi has to open the security lock with her shotgun in a moment that is pure badass. Gallagher, how are you making this woman my new favorite Turk? So they bail, and yes, don't worry, Tifa's cat Mog made it down safely. So they're going to have to walk, but fortunately they got far enough down the mountain that Sung is able to reach Heidi. That's where she gets the news that Sephiroth's team has already been dispatched. You see, this is where things start to coalesce. You see, Sung lets her know that, Sephiroth's team has been dispatched, and this impresses upon Heidi the seriousness of the new situation. Well, with the damaged ropeway, they'll have to hike up the mountain, and they're gonna need a guide. Sung asks Heidi, "You know anybody?" Well. Chapter 7, so we finally get a Hojo chapter here, and you want to talk about foreshadowing, how about this line? How can I possibly study the hunting behaviors of a pack bred in captivity? Again, maybe I'm reading too much here, but I see shades of future events in it. Hojo has a fondness for things in captivity, even more so than Christian Grey. But as Hojo mulls over his monsters and other things that his coworkers might deem unethical, he reflects back on some of the commentary by Fujito about the scientist needing a new challenge. Well, I dare say he found one. This chapter is a Hojo characterization smorgasbord, with even a hint at his future capture of Red 13 and name-dropping Bugenhagen. As if that's not enough, he implies that Sephiroth may be destined for bigger and better things, comments on the failure of Project G, and looks forward to when Aerith will be recaptured and witness the full extent of his genius. This is simple and pure, a good old-fashioned villain chapter, and just reading half of his diabolical thoughts made me want to break out into a cackling fit. The chapter ends with Sung updating him on the situation in Nibelheim, and Hojo realizing that he has set certain things in motion, which are going to cause the company some trouble. Nothing but the truth. Chapter 8. Now this is going to be a short one. This is the beginning of the flashback chapter, albeit with people in their proper roles. I like the information about how they came in via Gelnica hydroplane before deploying the truck towards Nibelheim. I like little touches like that. It puts me in the world, So this scene is very faithful, taking place from Zack's point of view. We get all the key moments, Cloud's motion sickness, Sephiroth telling Zack that this isn't an ordinary mission, and the tale of monsters from the reactor. But we get the added commentary here about it sounding an awful lot like those Genesis copies. This is where having a fresh view from the compilation perspective is so crucial. The chapter ends, as you would expect, Dragon Pot stickers. Called it. Chapter 9, we go straight from Zack's shoes into Cloud's, which allows us to continue the forward motion, while keeping things varied. Side note, I really love how Gallagher's style here, where he's written relatively short chapters with varied points of view. It keeps things fresh and engaging. You always want to read just a little bit more. We get more of Cloud's anxiousness here. He's home, and he doesn't want people to know that he hasn't made it yet. It's such a human reaction, and I just want to hug the poor spiky-headed bastard. We do get a scene here about the hometown with Sephiroth reacting with bitterness. One thing I liked here, a small touch. As he mentions his father, he clenches his fist. Really hints at the fact that, Sephiroth is beginning to suspect more than he let on even to Zack. And there are some beautiful descriptions to Nibelheim in this chapter. It really fleshes it out a bit, but I dare say in a book titled The Nibelheim Incident, describing the main setting is pretty damn important. It's written with that usual Gallagher flair. There's a nice meet-up later with Heidi as she briefs him on the situation. One thing leads to another, and when Sephiroth gives Cloud permission to visit family, Heidi puts two and two together and basically goes, "Oh, you're that guy Tifa was talking about." This isn't just a funny scene. I love how it puts pieces together for all the characters. It's a simple, natural interaction, filling in all the background for everybody. We also get Cloud's interaction with his mother, full of the same warmth and heart of the original scene. I know I just commented on how Gallagher is keeping these chapters short, but he really takes his time on this one, making it a bit longer, and it's absolutely the right decision. The chapter ends on an ominous tearjerker of a line, "I'll always be your mother." And Chapter 10, much shorter. Back in Zack now, as he returns from Monster Patrol, while longing for his comrades and especially Aerith, lamenting the poor job he did on her little pushcart with flowers. He stumbles onto a jittery guard duty Cloud, and the two have a little heart-to-heart. This is actually a really cute scene between friends, with a bit of back-and-forth teasing and hazing, some playful griping, and Zack telling Cloud all about the wonders of Soldier, including a line I absolutely love here, where he tells Cloud to practice that victory pose I taught you. It's so camp and self-aware, and I love it. After that, Zack heads inside, has some people, bitching about Shinra, and, what do you think you're really here for, that kind of talk. He also runs into Zangan, and Zangan hints that he knows a bit more about what's going on too, but he also brings up some more mundane stuff. He talks about his school, talks about how he's teaching Tifa, doesn't mention her by name, I don't think. But an interesting line here that I liked was he says, "You should never be afraid to incorporate new things because it might save your life one day." Again, big time foreshadowing. And finally things end kind of as they did the first day in that flashback, with Sephiroth saying, go get some rest, things are about to get serious, and he wonders if the guide is going to do a good job. And that, by the way, ends the first day. All these 10 chapters happened on the 23rd of September. Okay, well, that has been quite a long listen. Thank you for staying as long as you have. My goodness, you are champs who put in 32 minutes. It's actually less than I thought it would be. But next time we continue on our journey through the Shinra Tower. I'll see you around, guys.